Jared Taylor with American Renaissance. If you like this video, I hope you'll send links to your friends. The Afrikaners are a truly heroic people with a history of courage, perseverance, and faithfulness unmatched in modern times. In little more than 300 years, they brought forth a distinctive culture, a national church, a rich literature, and a vivid sense of identity. Known as Africa's white tribe, the Afrikaners' worst threats have always been other whites. First the Dutch, then the British, then the combined forces of all white people everywhere, to the point that they are now at the mercy of blacks. This is their tragic story. It begins in 1652, when the Dutch East India Company established a way station at the Cape of Good Hope for ships making the long voyage around Africa to the east. This is the arrival of Jan van Riebeek at the Cape along with 70 or 80 men. The company wanted only a victualling station, not a colony, but employees began to settle permanently and started calling themselves Afrikaners or Africans to distinguish themselves from workers on temporary assignment. Later, they also came to be known as boers or farmers. The population started out overwhelmingly Dutch, but the colony began to attract French Huguenots and some Germans, and by 1691, only 3/4 of the white population was Dutch. There was full assimilation. Everyone learned the Afrikaans language, still a mutually intelligible version of Dutch, and contributed to the growing new culture. The Dutch East India Company wanted to keep the Afrikaners under its thumb near the coast, but they were independent from the start. As early as 1700, wandering Boers or trek Boers explored thousands of miles into an almost empty interior. Here are some of the treks from 1700 to 1800. In 1795, as part of its wars with the French, the British took over the Cape Colony. They were arrogant masters, and Afrikaner resentment grew, especially after the imposition of a foreign language, English, as the official tongue. In the 1830s and 40s, an estimated 14,000 Boers sold their farms, if they could even find a buyer, and moved into the unmapped interior to be free from the British. Known as voortrekkers or early trekkers, they made up wagon trains of all their livestock and possessions and set off into the wilderness. This map shows the routes of the Great Treks between 1835 and 1840. This is a slightly fanciful depiction of the hardships of the Great Trek, which has become a central element in Afrikaner history. This imposing monument to the voortrekkers was completed in 1949. It includes tributes to the women on the trek, and the solemn interior befits the epic conquest of an untamed land. In 1838, when the Boers entered what is now Natal, 1,000 miles from the Cape, they met Zulus under King Dingaan. Boer leader Piet Retief and an unarmed delegation of about 100 men met with Dingaan and signed a treaty recognizing the right of the Boers to settle. After the signing, Dingaan invited his visitors to a show put on by his soldiers. Then he leapt to his feet and gave the order to slaughter the whites. His men clubbed them to death and made sure to kill Retief last, so he would witness the deaths of all the others, including his 14-year-old son. The Zulus left the bodies to be eaten by vultures, as was their custom. This is a monument to Retief and his men. Other trekkers found their bodies 11 months after the massacre and buried them in a mass grave, over which the monument now stands guard. After Dingaan and his men slaughtered the Retief delegation, they attacked several unsuspecting voortrekker camps in what became known as the Wienen Massacre, killing a total of 534 men, women, and children. As historian A.J.P. Opperman writes, not a soul was spared. Old men, women, and babies were murdered in the most brutal manner. This Boer-Zulu conflict came to a head 11 months later in what became known as the Battle of Blood River. 464 voortrekkers, under the leadership of Andries Pretorius, drew their covered wagons into a circle and held off an estimated 10 to 15,000 Zulu soldiers. The Afrikaners knew they faced terrible odds, and before the battle, they took a vow that if God would grant them victory, they would honor that day forever and would build a church in thanksgiving. It was a miraculous victory, and the Church of the Vow still stands in Pietermaritzburg. Today, metal replicas of the wagons are laid out at the Blood River Heritage Site. This battlefield monument stands before the entrance to the museum. Afrikaners went on to establish many independent republics in what was mostly uninhabited land. The two largest, the South African Republic and the Orange Free State, flourished from 1852 and 1854 respectively until 1902. Large families, like the one in this 1886 photograph, built growing, prosperous nations. What destroyed the Boer republics? British greed. Britain had colonized the rest of South Africa, and in 1886, there was a massive gold strike in the Witwatersrand Basin, near what became Johannesburg. It was deep in Afrikaner territory, and the British would stop at nothing to get that gold. It took 2 wars finally to defeat the toughest colonial enemy the empire had faced since the American Revolution. The Afrikaners were led politically by upright, patriotic men such as Paul Kruger, the president of the South African Republic. In the field, they followed great generals such as Koos de la Rey, shown here in the center. These brave patriots were finally crushed in 1902 by a British force of more than 500,000 men, nearly 10 times as many as the Boers could put into the field. In order to cut the Boers off from their supplies, the British herded women and children into concentration camps, where more than 26,000 died. This is Lizzie Van Zyl. She and her mother were considered undesirables because her father refused to surrender and were put on starvation rations. Lizzie died in camp, age 7. Britain granted independence in stages, and South Africa became a fully sovereign nation in 1934. Whites, both English and Afrikaner, ruled over a black population that was much larger. In 1948, South Africa introduced the apartheid system of separate development. Petty apartheid meant blacks and whites had separate facilities, as in the segregated American South. South Africa also instituted grand apartheid, or tribal homelands for blacks. Here is a map of the Bantustans. As you can see, they are small and scattered, and some were chopped up into many small pieces. South Africa granted formal independence to 4 of them, but none was ever recognized by any other country. Beginning in the 1960s, the white nations of the world led an increasingly harsh campaign of sanctions and boycotts to force the South Africans to end minority rule. Europeans, especially, began to support armed rebellion by blacks. All this pressure culminated in 1994, when blacks were given the vote. The African National Congress took power, and it's never let it go. Black rule has meant what it means everywhere: corruption, incompetence, and the systematic dispossession of whites. Many thousands of whites have fled the country, but this is easier for English speakers. Some Afrikaners have also escaped, but many have nowhere to go. The regime openly persecutes them. Under the slogan, Afrikaans must fall, blacks have even eliminated Afrikaans language instruction at the University of Pretoria. Blacks routinely kill white farmers, Boers literally, to drive them from the land. Each cross represents a slaughtered farmer, and Plasmoord means farm murders. The world has treated South Africans as criminals, but minority rule was the only way badly outnumbered whites could maintain order and preserve civilization in a multiracial state. Could a fair, more generous division of the country along racial lines have left whites with a real country of their own? We will never know. Whites were reluctant to hand over to blacks the great cities and productive farms that whites had built. But black rule means the destiny of whites is now in the hands of others, many of whom hate them. In today's South Africa, King Dingaan, who slaughtered women, children, and unarmed Afrikaner men, is admired as a liberation hero. Even the sainted Nelson Mandela raised his fist and sang the Black revolutionary song, Kill the Boer. The Afrikaner nation survived many attempts to strangle it in its crib. Now, once again, it faces odds like those at Blood River. Will there be another miracle? Its story is a message to us all. Only in unity can white nations survive and prosper. Thank you for watching. Please subscribe to this video channel. Also, I invite you to visit AmRen.com, AmRen.com. You'll find podcasts, videos, discussions, articles, I think a lot of things that will interest you. But again, thanks so much for watching.
Complete gratitude. Complete gratitude. Yeah, man. Again, we just catalog some information for our common folk, especially here on our island. We call Zamayaka, now called Jamaica. Some break it down as Jamaica. And because we are burning a fire a long time, and I said, this is who we are, non-African. We have always been here before the colonization, and people used to look at us crazy because there was a time when our people here, especially the reggae fraternity, the reggae industry, I direct our people to Africa. I sing songs about going back to Africa. And all of the cultural leaders align themselves that way. However, with this new faculty of thinking that has been instituted long before even this phrase is being coined. Because when you talk about a paradigm shift, that's just what it is. And when we around here bring forth certain kind of information where most people never heard of before, them say we're crazy. And now I have to salute a good brethren, Sammy. Send me a clip with one of the entertainers, a sister, and she burn a fire. But you don't know a man like I must give thanks, it's interesting. But when did the narrative change? Now we give thanks for the change, but sometimes we have to acknowledge, we want to learn these things from. I must say salute to my good brother, Moses. Yeah, man, for sharing that first video I dropped from that American Renaissance. So this is the second video I come across with this information and choose to share it. However, let's hear what the Jamaican entertainer have to say.
So I say like, sorry for what you do, and you been not doing the same way. So we are gonna just come say something over one here. We need you for Lego the other state. Lego the other state. Give the forward the original sovereignty, the one that was here before any ship turn up, before any colonizer turn up. So I said the freedom that we had as a people to express and be who we were. And even as hard as them still trying today to still keep us as that slave, where we were never slaves and we'll never settle to be just slaves.
Like that narrative.
Minister Wellness do the right thing now, my lord. They get the opportunity to stand up for Jamaica people, for true, like on a real levels, not just from the political partisan way. So for once and for all, you know, you just become privy counsel to this lady. At least tell me why. Tell me how we have a benefit with you being privy counsel to this lady and this monarch. We do it where them do it as a people, and we still under it. The youth them we are dead in the garrison are them under it. The poverty amongst the regular Jamaican are them under it. Anybody in a Jamaica will feel like they can be okay and they can drive them big vehicles
Hear this.
and move along easy is because them is a part of the sellout.
What?
Understand the struggle where the real Jamaican would have
Oh,
liked
yes,
to
sister.
would I like come stand up out here and look over in embassy, in British embassy and say we don't like you know. Them can't come because them have to get the food for them, you them eat. You see me I say, Andrew, the job where you do poor, my lad. What you do to Jamaican people, the real people where it matter to. Poor. Yeah.
Gratitude. Interesting. Interesting. We can break down a lot of points there, but we just a gratitude, you know. And people, listen to the narrative. Queen Africa is not talking about Mama Africa or going back to Africa. That's not in the narrative. She's talking about our sovereignty. Yeah, I'm telling us that the narrative change. Who is a sovereign man around here? Go ask the government of Jamaica and they'll let you know. You know what I mean? Who bring forth this kind of narrative and paradigm shift? Here. Check the tapes. So we say all of that for say this. Make we give thanks and find this common ground where we can unite, irrespective of our differences. Leg of the sissy shit, that sissy behavior, where you have a set of people, now have a problem, I talk about a next set of people, or attack a next man's platform, or even style, or his personality. You're no better than the colonizers talking about a next man's attitude when a man is a free man and expressing himself that way. And because you guys are some proper slave, you have problem with our personality and our, you know, saying we have attitude as if we don't have a right to have any kind of attitude we choose. So we say gratitude for this kind of narrative, and slowly but surely, step by step. But I know a lot of these cultural leaders get a lot of money, a lot of foreign currency, a lot of foreign privileges to sell out these people. So they're not going to talk the truth, even when they know the truth. You understand? Some of them sign blood oath not to reveal certain things, this kind of information, to keep the people enslaved, both spiritually, mentally, and physically, and have the people drifting, lost at sea, that commercial sea. So when I hear this good sister say the people we are drive up in them big car, them big expensive car, I will touch on these things. Sister boy, yo, I them are the sell out. Me have to bust out a laugh, because you better look in the mirror before you even start talk. You understand? However, we say gratitude for being candid, for being honest. But when we don't get credit where credit is due, then we say we're still disingenuous. You understand? This is why we don't know who to trust. You get me? So we put all our trust, faith, and confidence in the creator of nature. Yeah, man. To the Most High. Not man. to the Most High, never man, to the Most High creator of nature. This is why we say give thanks and praise to the mystic laws of the universe and its protective functions and forces in nature that guide our thought and our path in all ways that are lawful, correct, and positive. Now we can say the colonization of South Africa. What am I say? It started in 1652. Remember the British guy them come in our location 1655. And the Spanish guy came in 1492. Now in 1652, South Africa was invaded by these so-called Afrikaners. I don't know if them not tell you from where or from whence they came, but them a tell us so them come in and them a defend a piece of Africa right there as, you know, heroic white tribe. How much our people have this information? How much of our Pan-Africans have this information? This is why I would share it, shine light on it, catalog it, and say give thanks. The brave may fall, but never yield. And we say bold and brave, firm and strong, are walk in their nation in America.